major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, proud to support the mission of KPBS and privileged to serve San Diego clients. Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, helping homeowners maintain drain, heating, and cooling systems since 1978. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
Good evening. It's Tuesday, April 28th. Thanks for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. It is testing both our patients in our hospitals and our patients in our daily lives. The coronavirus continues to make its way across our county. And today, a group of local leaders came together to make a plea. More on that in a moment, but first, new numbers show 173 more cases locally. 5 people died, ages ranging from 50 to 80. Also today, Governor Newsom outlined a 4-phase plan to reopen California. KPBS's Max Rivlin-Nadler begins our coverage.
The 4 phases the governor revealed today follow local attempts at opening up some beaches, parks, and other public spaces over the past week. Right now, California is in phase 1, which includes staying at home, increasing testing, and resourcing safety equipment. Phase 2 would include reopening non-essential manufacturing, some retail businesses with curbside pickup, and even more public spaces. Phase 3 includes reopening things like gyms, hair salons, and sporting events without audiences, while Phase 4 would be the end of the stay-at-home order. But Newsom cautioned, Phase 4 remains a long way off.
We're not going back to the way things were until we get the kind of immunity that all of us look forward to, or a vaccine that we look forward to. So want us to be cautious in this space, but also patient in this space.
Newsom also said discussions are underway to make up for the learning loss that students have experienced during the pandemic by beginning the school year as early as July. In San Diego County, officials announced 5 more deaths, bringing the total number to 118. Supervisor Greg Cox began Tuesday's briefing by discussing the worsening situation in Baja California, which has seen a sharp rise in COVID-19 related deaths and hospitalizations over the past week.
This virus does not respect borders or boundaries. It is truly a global pandemic. And so we will continue to monitor the situation in Mexico and work with our counterparts there to assist them while at the same time protecting our region.
The county has reached out to the Department of Homeland Security for guidance and support on screening at ports of entry and how best to assist Baja California in helping stop the spread of the virus. Officials also stressed that with a mask requirement set to take effect countywide on Friday, people should get used to wearing their masks outside or being able to quickly put on a mask if they come near others.
To me, wearing a facial covering really isn't as much about protecting yourself as much as it is about protecting others. If all I had was available, and I knew that it would help you, in love, I would wear a dirty sock in order to prevent the transmission of this virus.
Max Rivlin-Nadler, KPBS News.
A handful of local mayors joined forces today to call on the reopening of several non-essential businesses, among those hair salons, bars, gyms, and golf courses. More now from KPBS reporter Matt Hoffman.
This is about jobs. This is about the thousands of people that are out of work, mostly from the service industry, the restaurants, places like that.
North County mayors from Carlsbad, Escondido, Vista, San Marcos, and Oceanside are calling for non-essential businesses to reopen starting May 1st. That's this Friday.
We have over 5,000 room nights here in Carlsbad in our hotel businesses. That supports 20,000 people to make that happen. Right now, all those hotels are closed.
We've been operating under the stay-at-home order for over a month now, which has created a devastating financial impact on many of our local businesses and their employees, especially our local breweries.
It's time for us to start get the economy, all aspects of it, going again, and I think we can do so, as was mentioned, in a safe manner.
We want the guidance, of course, from the county health professionals but we can't wait forever. We need to start doing something.
The mayors say non-essential businesses can adopt the same guidelines that essential businesses are using right now to stay open.
We received plans from them to limit their capacity, to take temperatures, and they're willing to wear masks to ensure the safety of their employees and the patrons.
California Governor Gavin Newsom says science and data about the virus, those infected, and hospitalization rates will guide decision-making on when to reopen.
Dates don't, but data does. Politics will not drive our decision-making. Protests won't drive our decision-making. Political pressure will not drive our decision-making.
Newsom says we missed the surge in cases that places like New York saw, but it will be weeks before non-essential businesses might be able to reopen, because if we start laxing restrictions now,
it could start a second wave that could be even more damaging than the first.
But the North County mayors and Supervisor Jim Desmond say the situation is getting desperate.
We need a handful of businesses to be phased in, and then see how it goes, and then phase in the next set of businesses, and then if we have a big surge or that happens later on, we're not so far out on the limb that we can't retreat.
Last week, Desmond and Supervisor Kristen Gaspar asked county officials to lobby the state to reopen non-essential businesses on May 1st. But Supervisors Nathan Fletcher, Diane Jacob, and Greg Cox voted that motion down. Matt Hoffman, KPBS News.
Local businesses may need to reinvent how they operate when things start to open back up. That's according to Jerry Sanders, the former mayor and current president of the San Diego Regional Chamber of Commerce. He says even the physical act of coming to work might have to change, especially in large office buildings.
How many people do you let on the elevator at one time? How do you have lines that queue into that are socially distanced? And do you need to stagger start times for different companies on different floors so that you don't have too many people crowding the lobby waiting to get into an elevator? So it's going to require a lot of thought by business.
Sanders says the chamber is not taking a position on a specific date for reopening and will leave those details to public health experts. Palomar Health is laying off 317 employees effective tomorrow. The hospital says patient visits have dropped, leading to nearly $6 million in losses since the coronavirus outbreak began. Palomar Health operates medical centers and clinics in San Marcos, Poway, Escondido, Ramona, and Rancho Bernardo. The 317 laid-off positions are mostly part-time workers, from clerical staff to technicians, and that number does include 50 RNs. Tenant advocates expect thousands of Californians who lost income because of the pandemic will struggle to pay their May rent. Sarah Steinminer of Legal Services of Northern California says tenants who can't pay should tell their landlords in writing before the rent is due and keep all documents proving that COVID-19 is the reason they lost income.
Might be a letter from their employer laying them off, or it might be a letter reducing their hours. It could be something showing that they had to stay home to care for a child due to school closures.
California's courts have placed a freeze on eviction proceedings statewide, but there are no rules that exempt tenants from paying their rent. Advocates advise renters to pay it if they can afford to. Meanwhile, some lawmakers have proposed legislation to give renters more time to pay back rent once the coronavirus emergency is lifted. San Diego Unified School District officially launched distance learning this week. One San Diego student gave KPBS education reporter Joe Hong a tour of his online classroom.
Let me show you my Google Classroom. Okay.
Frank Granda is a junior at Serra High School in San Diego. He spent the last few weeks of the district's soft launch adjusting to the new realities brought on by the coronavirus pandemic.
Since today is the first day of distance learning, I just got a huge chunk, a week's worth of work, and I have to do this in one day.
Both his academics and extracurriculars have migrated to online platforms like Zoom.
I also go through clubs, so sometimes I have to attend Zoom meetings. And I also have to attend other Zoom meetings for my classes, like history. I have to do it like once every Tuesdays and Thursdays.
Frank is also on the autism spectrum. Before the physical school sites closed, he was in smaller classes and got extra help. The transition online was difficult for him at first.
Yeah, it's a bit challenging, because I think that the only complaint is mainly have to wait for Tuesdays and Thursdays at a certain time, like 9 to 10 a.m. to get the support I need.
But now he's gotten the hang of things.
you're trying to understand what's going on, or how to make sense of all this. After a while, you kind of get used to it.
Distance learning has been a poor substitute for many students with disabilities and their families. They no longer have access to services like speech and occupational therapy, and the online platforms don't meet their needs. Frank's experiences are more the exception than the rule, experts say.
Well, I would actually consider that quite as a bit of an improvement, actually, now that I think about it, because normally what happens is that I have to compete with additional support. Back in chemistry, I had to basically be with other 30 students who also need support and help. But now it's just me. I can mostly be free to finally get the support I need to get my grades up.
But that doesn't mean he doesn't miss being on campus. In fact, he's learned to appreciate school even more.
One day, I'm going to tell my kids and basically look, little Jimmy, you're lucky you get to go to school. When I was your age, we didn't get to go to school. We were stuck at home looking at our computers and getting strained eyes and headaches.
Joe Hong, KPBS News.
A Navy destroyer experiencing an outbreak of the coronavirus is here in San Diego to undergo a deep cleaning. The USS Kidd had been on patrol for drug smugglers in the Caribbean and Eastern Pacific. 47 out of 300 crew members have tested positive for the virus. All sailors will be isolated off ship with twice daily medical screenings, and the disinfection process is expected to take about 2 weeks. The number of people living on the streets in the city of San Diego has dropped by 12% this year. That's according to a new report from the Regional Task Force on the Homeless. The annual count taken on January 23rd found more than 4,800 people experiencing homelessness. The city has taken additional steps in response to the coronavirus pandemic, including enacting an eviction moratorium and opening a temporary shelter at the San Diego Convention Center. Advocates for elderly people say Governor Newsom is about to approve broad legal immunity for nursing homes and healthcare providers. KPBS reporter Amita Sharma has more.
Likely to sign.
Lawyer Mike Dark of California Advocates for Nursing Home Reform says Newsom is expected to sign an immunity order within days. The order would give nursing homes, assisted living facilities, and hospitals immunity from administrative, civil, and criminal action for decisions made during the COVID-19 outbreak. Dark says he fears the immunity will cover reckless and dangerous conduct.
That's such an important point, because we're not just talking about negligence, which is what most people think about when they think about lawsuits. Reckless conduct is conduct when the defendant knows what they're doing is dangerous and they don't care and they do it anyway, and people are hurt or die as a result.
Micah Liberty, president of Consumer Attorneys of California, says California's malpractice laws are already some of the most industry-friendly in the nation. She calls it unnecessary to give these institutions even more protections.
There are already immunities on the books that say if there is a state of emergency, this kind of behavior is immune in the medical profession. Putting that aside, we also have horribly unfair laws on the books, which are a cap on medical malpractice damages that have not been changed since they were implemented in 1974.
Groups representing nursing homes and assisted living facilities declined comment. Governor Newsom's office responded to a request for comment by saying, quote, "We'll let you know if we have anything on this," end quote. Amita Sharma, KPBS News.
We're following all of the latest coronavirus developments for you at kpbs.org. Just click on the Tracking COVID-19 link on our homepage and you'll be taken to a page with all of our recent reports. You can find that right now at kpbs.org. South County officials are demanding immediate action to stop unprecedented flows of sewage-tainted water across the U.S.-Mexico border. KPBS environment reporter Eric Anderson has the details.
The flow of sewage-tainted water is massive, even for a region that's become accustomed to regular toxic flows into U.S. waters. Billions of gallons of urban runoff carrying untreated sewage and other toxins have crossed into the U.S. since last November. Some days, up to 60 million gallons flow into the Tijuana River estuary and then out to sea. Imperial Beach Mayor Serge Dedina calls that astonishing.
The entire sewer system of Tijuana has collapsed, and it appears there are absolutely no efforts underway in Mexico or on the part of the U.S. federal government, the Trump administration, to actually move forward and ask for emergency repairs so we don't endure an entire summer of polluted beaches.
Local officials are moving ahead with 3 lawsuits aimed at pressing the federal government to act, but state officials say there are things that can be done now. State Senator Ben Hueso says it starts in Mexico.
They've got to make those investments in areas that prevent these outflows. It's as simple as that. I just can't express it any other way. I know it's that simple, but it's not happening.
The beaches themselves have been open to pedestrians, at least for the first couple of days of this week, but the water still off limits because of cross-border pollution. Eric Anderson, KPBS News.
Mother Nature is putting on quite the light show off our coast as the red tide returns. Take a look at these beautiful photos shot at Sunset Cliffs and Black's Beach last night. You can see the bright blue luminescent waves. While the algae bloom appears red or brown during the day, it actually glows blue at night. And it looks like we're in for another day of warm weather before it starts to cool off again. Mark Mancuso has your forecast.
Well, the heat continues to be the big story in the interior sections. The heat will be peaking on Wednesday. Meanwhile, along the coast, we'll see a late night, early morning, low clouds, some areas of some fog that'll extend in a little bit. That continues through the weekend into the weekend. And then for the end of the week and into the weekend, we will see our ridge break down. So the cooling starts to spread inland on Thursday, and that will continue spread through the mountains and into the deserts by the end of the week and over the weekend. But until then, around the Mojave Desert and the Colorado Desert, we are looking at excessive heat warnings. So in these areas, make sure you hydrate, try and stay in a nice cool spot. Take a look at temperatures tonight. Oceanside drops down to 60, El Cajon 61, Borrego Springs 71, and Mount Laguna around 57. Low clouds near the coast. Interior sections, though, stay mainly clear, lots of sunshine. And there it is, the ridge peaking here on Wednesday, and still the potential for some record heat in some of the interior sections with temperatures well above average. Look out Borrego Springs, 105. Mount Laguna hit 74. Ramona's 84. El Cajon 86. Oceanside in the mid-70s. San Diego 76. So temperatures are still above average, but the real heat continues into the interior. So here's our forecast for the next few days here along the coast. We'll start off with morning clouds, and that will give way to some afternoon sunshine. Temperatures hovering in the mid-70s most of the time. As we head inland, there'll be some clouds for some in the morning hours, and notice the temperature trends cooling a little bit over the weekend. And then as we take you up to the mountains here, a little bit cooler here for the end of the week and over the weekend. And in the deserts, temperatures in the triple digits through Friday. Notice it's not as hot Saturday and Sunday. And for KPBS News, I'm meteorologist Mark Mancuso.
Our partner iNewsSource is reporting that Imperial County is expected to open a new COVID-19 testing site on May 4th. Last week, the state designated the region one of 80 testing deserts in California. The site will rotate among 3 locations in the county that officials have yet to name, and you can find out more at inewssource.org. A San Diego community health clinic is launching pop-up COVID clinics for its patients. Family Health Centers of San Diego is offering testing this week at its Chula Vista clinic. It'll then move for a week to its location in Southeast San Diego, followed by its El Cajon site and then San Diego's Logan Heights neighborhood. Testing is available to existing Family Health Centers patients regardless of symptoms, but they must be 12 years old or older. Go to kpbs.org for details. When the U.S.-Mexico border shut down in March, conservation efforts were put on hold. But at the last minute, San Diego researchers were able to bring the red-legged frog from Mexico back to Southern California. Here's KPBS Science and Technology reporter Shalina Chetlani.
It's a very strange call that we haven't heard here in San Diego for, 45 years.
Herpetologist Bradford Hollingsworth of the San Diego Natural History Museum is very familiar with the California red-legged frog.
We can all mimic, us herpetologists can all mimic frog sounds, so.
Can you do that?
Like the red-legged frog is.
The frog, which used to be an important part of the food web in Southern California, started declining in the region in the 1970s because of habitat destruction and invasive species.
The whole idea of having them back here in Southern California was a dream of many of us.
In 2006, the museum and federal biologists began studying ways to bring the frog back, and soon they partnered with a nature group in Baja California, Mexico, where the frog population was thriving. In March, the team could finally transport frog eggs across the border for the first time until
the COVID-19 pandemic was beginning to shut down the border. In the middle of the project, the museum closed its doors to the public. That was right at that time. And I'm down in Baja California seeing everything unfold.
Hollingsworth says 2 days before the border shut down, the team was scrambling to come up with a game plan because federal biologists could no longer travel across the border.
The weather was bad. The storm that was happening at the middle of March was causing all sorts of problems.
With some shuffling in travel plans, they were ultimately able to transport the eggs. But if they had missed that small window of opportunity,
we would have had to wait a whole nother year.
The frog made it back to Southern California, but some cross-border environmental work has become more difficult. In a statement, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Services wrote that some field research and wildlife management activities have been temporarily halted or restricted for the safety of the public and service staff. For the red-legged frog, American biologists had partnered with the Mexican nonprofit group Conservación de Fauna del Noreste. Annie Peralta Garcia is the co-founder, and she says she's heard some concerns from other people in the field in Mexico.
Because you're missing all this field work and all this information that just like, oh, you know, maybe they've been working for 10 years just collecting data and now they won't be able to do it.
Peralta Garcia says they were lucky to get the first frog egg masses across the border.
Like me, like I cannot go to the U.S. anymore. You know, even if I want to take some egg masses, I can't. Somebody from the U.S. will have to come.
But U.S. Geological Services biologist Robert Fisher says they succeeded because they were also prepared.
We got really lucky, and a lot of it was that we were really prepared because we had done work previously in Mexico to prepare for this with the Mexican team. We did experimental translocations.
Fisher says they want to try to move more frogs again next year to build up the population.
I think this really built enough momentum that we'll be able to kind of show we can do it, and we'll get more partners on board.
But even if they can't,
we'll use this pond, these two ponds as source populations for other sites in the U.S., hopefully over time.
And as red-legged tadpoles grow into adult frogs, Fisher says he's excited to start hearing them singing throughout San Diego. Shalina Chatlani, KPBS News.
And this story is part of covering Climate Now, an effort by news organizations worldwide to bring about a greater understanding of the real-time impacts of climate change. For more, you can head to kpbs.org/climatechange. An engineering lab at University San Diego has transformed into a mini factory making face shields for nurses and doctors. The Shiley Marcos School of Engineering is able to make about 150 face shields each week. It's a donation that's welcomed by Scripps nurse practitioner Nicole Martinez, who is also a clinical assistant professor at USD.
Beautiful donation as a face shield not only helps us to protect all of our patients, but also ourselves and our family members. And it is very heartwarming to experience so much love and compassion.
So far, the university has donated more than 300 to Scripps Mercy Hospital, with more on the way. Starting Friday, people riding the bus or trolley will be required to cover their nose and mouth. That's the same day the county-wide face covering requirement takes effect. The Metropolitan Transit System says passengers without face coverings will be denied service. At least 5 MTS bus drivers and 2 trolley maintenance workers have tested positive for the coronavirus. JetBlue will become the first major U.S. airline to require passengers to wear face coverings. The airline says it's about protecting everyone on board. Cabin air circulates and is cleaned through filters every few minutes, but JetBlue says planes are still shared spaces where everyone needs to be considerate. The new policy starts on May 4th.
I'm Judy Woodruff. Tonight on the NewsHour, is federal aid going to the people and businesses that need it most? Senator Chuck Schumer on the U.S. response, coming up at 7 after Evening Edition on KPBS.
An update now on our top story. Mayors in the North County are calling for businesses to reopen this Friday. It came as Governor Newsom outlined a 4-phase plan to reopen California. Newsom also touched on the limitations of distance learning, saying the state is considering starting the next school year in late July or early August. Here in San Diego County, new numbers show 5 more people have died and 173 more COVID-19 cases. An incredible sight over New York City today. The Blue Angels and Thunderbirds held a flyover to honor first responders on the front lines of the pandemic. The Navy and Air Force squads also flew over New Jersey and Philadelphia. And you can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thank you for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Have a good night.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, proud to support the mission of KPBS and privileged to serve San Diego clients. Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, helping homeowners maintain drain, heating, and cooling systems since 1978. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley. And by the following: and by viewers like you. Thank you.